Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So today we're gonna bring you guys, I think what everyone is waiting for in terms of the Albedo videos, which is the Cinnabar Spindle video. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly talk about Cinnabar Spindle itself, the weapon, what it does, and then we're going to a similar format as per what I shared yesterday when I did the snapshot update. We'll look into artifacts versus mainly the 4-piece Husk versus 2-piece Petra and 2-piece Husk. And I will also compare Cinnabar against Harbinger of Dawn because between the two F2P options, those are the most prominent F2P options for Albedo. Okay, although Cinnabar Spindle is new, so we don't have a chance to test it out yet. But based on the math, this is what Cinnabar Spindle does, or rather the stats of Cinnabar Spindle is as follows. At level 90, you get 454 base attack, so it's actually one of the lower base attack values, which is good for Albedo because his defense skill link, at least his elemental skill. And that's where the subset is really good because it gives you 69% defense at level 19. This is a very significant amount, and it really does make up for the crit stat loss from Harbinger of Dawn. And not to mention, the effect is completely niche and built for Albedo. At R1, you get elemental skill damage increased by 40% of defense. So this is similar to how you get the HP buff from, say, Toma, from Zhongli. It's the exact same way, where it's equivalent 40% of your defense just is considered as, it's sort of like defense. Sorry, I shouldn't say defense, it's just sort of like adding a flat attack value, which means that it gets increased by crit damage as well as damage bonuses. Okay? Now the effect will be triggered once every 1.5 seconds, will be cleared 0.1 second. This is fine. This is just to make sure that it's only applicable for the elemental skill for the case of Albedo. But I will talk more about this weapon, whether or not it's suitable for other characters at the end of this video as well. Now it's a free weapon, it's an event weapon, so we are going to get the refinement materials through the event, most likely an event shop, where you exchange whatever event currency that you get. So R5 is going to give you elemental skill damage increased by 80% defense. Does this look familiar? This is like Itto, right? Itto's Redhorn Stone Treasure also gives 40% damage increase. Sorry, damage increase based on 40% of defense as well as 80% of defense. Both armor and R5. Although his weapon does more than that, it also increases his defense directly, as well as crit damage. But let's not go into that. So this is what Cinnabar Spindle does. Another thing good about Cinnabar Spindle is that aesthetically, it actually matches Albedo very well. If you look at the coat that he has here, or rather his inner wear, which his coat is covering, it actually matches this very well. So I'm really looking forward to using Cinnabar Spindle on him, to trying it out. Okay, now let me go to my points. So if you notice here, this portion is pretty much the same as what I did in the last video, where I talk about the snapshotting versus the 4-piece Husk Stacking. In case you don't know what snapshotting is, snapshotting simply means that the skill snapshots all the buffs that it has that's on your character at that point in time, and it doesn't expire even if the sick buff expires. The other way is true as well, where in the case of 4-piece Husk, the elemental skill, in this case Albedo's E, it does not, because it's snapshot, right? It doesn't take into account when you gradually gain stats unless you recast it. Okay? Now I'm not going to go into all this detail. If you watched my previous video, you know how what are my thoughts about the benefits of recasting, or the pros and cons of recasting his E. What are the optimal rotations to do? Okay, all of this is here. I'm not going to go through them in detail. You can pause, or even better, just check out the previous video and you get a good idea of what I'm talking about here. Now, I'll put a link to the previous video in the description, as well as the top right corner over here, which is the in-video link. Okay. Now I'm gonna jump straight to the damage figures. Now bear in mind this is average with crit, so this is not gonna be the This will be a rough estimate of the overall damage that you will deal in, say, 20 seconds and versus 18 seconds when you're not using burst. When you're using 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk, there is 1 second less, or in the case of the no burst, it's 2 seconds because of the way we are doing the recast, etc. Okay, so if you look at these figures, you now see that for the Cinnabar Spindle, the percentage differences are actually very different. If you look at the DP, this is the damage per second figure, this is the percentage difference. Okay, so 15% of this simply means that the 4-piece Husk at R5 without any of these other factors does 15% better than 2-piece Petra and 2-piece Husk. Looking at Albedo's damage only. Okay, if you have a C6 Goro, the difference is going to be even bigger, it's 20%. But if you look at all these figures, they're all positive, which means that 4P Husk actually does better. The difference between 4-piece Husk and 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk was originally 5 to 12% if I did not factor in snapshotting. Now that we did, it's 11 to 20%. That's because when we recast E, we get to prot E immediately again to the E prot reset upon recast. So this is what I mentioned in the previous video too. Now, in Cinnabar Spindle, right, it actually buffs Albedo's E significantly. That's why the percentage here is even bigger than that of the Harbinger of Dawn, because Harbinger of Dawn is 10 to 17%. Okay? Now, the important figures here. Let's talk about when we have Itto, right? Because in the Itto comp, Itto is going to be dealing most of the damage. The more time you spend trying to do setup, the more detrimental it is to your DPS. Okay, so we'll take C6R5 Itto, obviously it's Redhorn Stone Treasure, and C0R1 Redhorn Stone Treasure for comparison. Okay, now these are the figures. This is Itto's figures, this is Itto plus Albedo in this amount duration. Obviously only one Itto's burst. Okay, and this is the damage per second. And this is the percentage. Now, this is where things start to get interesting. Because compared to Harbinger of Dawn, 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk is only better than 4-piece Husk 3 stats by 3%, as opposed to 7% for Harbinger of Dawn when we are talking about a C6R5 Itto. This would mean that for second rotations onwards, when 4-piece Husk 4 stats will be achieved, remember, because of snapshotting, we can only get 3 stats for the first rotation if we don't want to waste time on Albedo waiting. Or waste time on Albedo. Yeah, you need to wait at least 2 seconds even if you have Albedo on field, so that's not recommended. So 4-piece Husk will very likely outperform 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk, even with recast factored in. And when burst is used, 4-piece Husk will actually be better by 1 to 3%. As opposed to previously, in the previous video, Harbinger of Dawn was doing negative figures throughout for C6R5. Okay, do you see the difference now? In fact, I can show what was the Harbinger figures. Let me just go back to... Give me a moment. Yeah, so C6R5, if you see here, is pretty much almost all negative, except for 2 figures where it's 0%. This means that 4-piece Husk, generally speaking, is worse off than 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk. For Harbinger of Dawn, because C6R5 Itto's damage is so high. But when we are using Cinnabar Spindle, you start to see the difference, where only the 4-piece Husk 3 stats, which is the C0 no burst playstyle, this is the only one where you have 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk performing better. The rest of the scenario, 4-piece Husk with just 3 stats are already performing better. So that's quite interesting, right? And it's really because of how good Cinnabar Spindle is. Now let's look at C0R1 Itto. So same thing, you have the C0R1 Itto's burst damage total damage in burst, so you can see that it's significantly lower than the C6R5. but still pretty damn high for a C0 character. And these are the figures with the Albedo's damage added in, damage per second, and the percentage figures. Do you see that none of them are negative? So C0 R1 Itto's damage coupled with the high E damage thanks to Cinnabar Spindle CS. It actually results in 4-piece Husk being better than 2-piece Husk, 2-piece Petra by 2 to 3%, even without using the burst at 3 stacks. So this is a very interesting result that's completely different from Harbinger of Dawn with 4-piece Husk. And when burst is used, 4-piece Husk is even better by 4 to 8%, mainly because of the additional 3 seconds for burst costing the 1 second for recast to have a smaller impact. But I hope you see that with a weapon like Cinnabar Spindle, where it significantly boosts Albedo's E damage, with more in damage being factored in, it actually makes it such that the 4-piece Husk becomes better than the 2-piece Petra and 2-piece Husk. Because you gotta remember, the need to recast your E also means a free proc or free immediate proc on the E damage, because it resets the cooldown when you recast your E. Okay? So this is just artifacts, and I'll talk quickly about the TLDR. So effectively, Albedo with 6 is R5 Itto. 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk is only 3% better if you're not using burst, and 1 to 3% worse if you are, provided your Albedo E is not destroyed by enemies. Don't forget this important point, I repeated it many times in the previous video. Okay, Albedo with C0 R1 Itto, 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk is actually 2 to 3% worse if you're not using burst, and 4 to 8% worse if you are. Provided again that your Albedo E is not destroyed by enemies. If you have to recast Albedo E with 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk, either due to the boss size, if you ever tried this, just try casting your flower right in front of Albedo, or right in front of Ashtaha. It won't even form because Ashtaha is blocking you. Or it may simply be destroyed by enemies. There are a lot of bosses now that are able to destroy Albedo's E. So in that scenario, 4-piece Husk will be even better. Okay, let me just add the even. So without a top tier DPS like Itto, 4-piece Husk is 11 to 20% better than 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk. So you see here with Cinnabar Spindle, which is a weapon that is free, it actually helps you a lot in making the new artifact 4-piece being better than 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk. Yeah, sorry. This is as per last statement, but I think I should remove this statement first, because this is more applicable to Harbinger of Dawn. Now, this is still a general statement that holds true even for Cinnabar Spindle. And I'll do a final TLDR when I talk about whether or not I think 4-piece Husk of 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk should we go for, or whether you should even go from Harbinger to Cinnabar Spindle. And that's what we're kind of going to cover next, where you see the weapon comparison for Cinnabar Spindle versus Harbinger of Dawn. We'll do one comparison featuring 4-piece Husk and Albedo only, and we'll do the next comparison featuring 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk and Albedo only. Okay, I'm not going to bring Itto in because for the weapon comparison, you don't really need to bring the Itto damage in. Okay, because we're talking about same type artifacts with different weapons. Now, these are the Cinnabar Spindle figures, these are the Harbinger of Dawn figures. Obviously, right off the bat, you'll see that Cinnabar does higher damage, regardless of which style it is. And this is the percentage difference. Now, if you saw my sneak peek on Twitch previously, right, those figures did contain some error that I had to rework my Cinnabar Spindle figures, so I'm just glad that I managed to find them before I did this video. Find the error, I mean. So, with this in mind, in the pure defense playstyle without using burst, Cinnabar Spindle has a 26 to 28% advantage over HOD. If burst is used, Cinnabar Spindle's advantage is reduced, but it's still higher than HOD. It's ranging from 9 to 22%. You have 22% here, you have the 9% here. Okay, depending on which permutation it is. And again, remember, first column is R5, second is R5 with dual resonance, R5 of this individual weapon. So for the purpose of Cinnabar Spindle and Harbinger of Dawn, we are using R5 versus R5 because both of them are R5 is easily achievable on both of these. Okay. And then you have the third column, R5 with C2 plus Goro buffing, and you have C6 Goro as well on the last column. So I hope this helps to see that, this helps you guys to see how good Cinnabar Spindle is against Harbinger of Dawn, because a 26 to 28% advantage is actually equivalent to doing an actual weapon tier upgrade, typically from 4 star to 5 star. Now let's look at the 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk weapon comparison, Cinnabar Spindle versus Harbinger of Dawn. So you see here, the percentages are slightly lower with Harbinger of Dawn. Remember, Cinnabar Spindle boosts the E significantly, Albedo's E significantly. Okay, the 80% defense giving you bonus damage is only on his elemental skill. So we're talking about 24 to 26% versus 26 to 28, and 7 to 18% versus 9 to 22. So yeah, I already covered this point. So let's talk about the final recommendation. This video is going to be faster than my, or quicker than my usual one, or shorter than my usual ones, which I think is a good thing. And tomorrow I'll try to release a video tomorrow. I'm trying to keep to a daily video release schedule, at least for this week. So next video is going to be Freedom Swan, and if I can, I might squeeze in the overall weapon comparison, including Jade Cutter as well. Really depends on the progress of my math. Because Freedom Swan is actually quite complicated. Although the way I'm presenting it now will simplify some of the complications, but I'll talk more about that in that Freedom Swan video. Besides, I know that a lot of people do not necessarily have Freedom Swan, but that weapon is actually the #1 weapon that I'm most happy to get R5 off as a wheel. No joke. I'm very, very serious of this. Okay? But I'll talk about that in the Freedom Swan video. So, basically, my final TLDR or final recommendation here is that CS is definitely a very nice upgrade over Harbinger of Dawn. 26% average, like I said, is a tier upgrade, which, if you think about it, is exactly the case here when you go from 3 star to 4 star. But you gotta bear in mind that no other 4 star weapon can do this for Albedo. For Albedo, his design is so, okay, let's use a nice word, it's so unique that it's either a 3 star weapon like Harbinger of Dawn or a 5 star weapon like Jade Cutter. And one requires you to use, one is for you when you don't use burst, one is for use when you use burst. Obviously the 5 star weapon is the one with burst. And Freedom Swan is also a viable option for buffing. So in terms of the crit damage that you will see from Albedo's E, right? Because so far I've been talking about DPS, I've been talking about total damage. I decided I wanted to give you guys a view on the actual crit damage you will see in game. So in terms of the crit figures, based on all the stats and assumptions that I have in my math, 4-piece Husk with 3 stacks with C6 Goro, a level 9E with Cinnabar Spindle is about 41k, while the same with Harbinger of Dawn is 30.6k. So it is 41.4k and 30.6k. So it's a very nice upgrade for Albedo overall, because I don't think any Albedo right now is dealing that much damage unless it's C6R5. This is based on C0 Albedo, okay? But bear in mind, these figures are achieved with very good artifacts. Only one artifact wrong, upgrade gone wrong per artifact, total 5. Now my current Albedo, just to share, my current Albedo does around 17 to 18k damage on his E. It's not, I can't say that he's min-maxed yet, but he's pretty optimized. There's room for growth, but being able to do 17 to 18k damage now, with just dual resonance and no zone resistance shred, I'm very happy with his damage. Now then think about this, okay? Think about this. From 17 to 18k, it goes to 30.6k. And then you also have the option of 41.4k with Cinnabar Spindle. My artifacts, although I say there's room to grow, right? Actually, my artifact rolls are really good. It's just that there's more defense percentage than crit damage that I would have liked. But it's fine because my crit damage is still close to 200. It's only 190% right now. Okay, I should have used the word only, but yeah, it's 190% right now. But I would have preferred it if it hit 200% before I get the rest of the stats in defense. But anyway, what I want to bring forward is not how my Albedo is doing, is that the combination of C6 Goro plus a new artifact 4-piece Husk plus a new weapon for him, Cinnabar Spindle, is really great in boosting his overall E damage. It's slightly more than double if you think about it. It's 17 to 18k going to 41.4k. That's really more than double. I mean, yes, there is a C6 character involved here, but if you are going to pull for Itto, I do recommend trying to get as many copies of Goro as well while you are doing it, since Goro is on Itto's banner. That's a very good thing, by the way, the fact that Goro is on Itto's banner. And the thing about Cinnabar Spindle is that it's an event free weapon, so you get a 1.5x enhancement bonus, so definitely worth getting into 90 to replace HOD if you're already using HOD on your Albedo. Another important factor is that HOD's weapon effect is completely negated by corrosion. The moment any of the wolves hit you with corrosion, your Albedo's HOD effect is completely gone, regardless of whether he's on field or off field. But there is no such condition attached to Cinnabar Spindle. You're still going to get your beautiful 80% damage bonus, or rather damage bonus based on 80% of his defense. Okay, so this, to me, this is the most important factor and the biggest driving factor for me to want to improve to another weapon over HOD, because my Albedo is using HOD as well. As for the other artifact set to go with Cinnabar Spindle, 4 Harpies Husk is better. I have to put this in red because it's different from Harbinger of Dawn. Harbinger of Dawn is the other way around, right? So 4-piece Husk is better than 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk in all scenarios, except when your Itto is C6R5, and even then it's only for the first rotation. Subsequent rotations, 4-piece Husk will still do better when you have a C6R5 Itto. So my previous recommendation in the previous video to go with 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk still holds as a placeholder option while you're trying to farm more of the 4-piece, more of the Husk artifacts, because there's other characters like Goro and Itto who needs them as well. But it is important, it's more important to go for 4-piece Husk as soon as possible now for Cinnabar Spindle, as opposed to Harbinger of Dawn where you can just take your time. And another thing to remember is that, especially since you will need more crit stats on your Husk pieces compared to your Petra pieces that were originally used with HOD. So if you're like me, you are using HOD together with some Petra and whatever other artifacts that you're using, your artifacts are likely designed to make use of the 28% crit rate from HOD. As you go to 4-piece Husk now, you are gonna lose that 28% crit rate. You are gonna need crit rate on your artifacts. Okay? So you should really go that. Okay, so that's for artifact farming, but in my opinion, you should really go for Cinnabar Spindle over Harbinger of Dawn. It's an important and free upgrade for Albedo. The only thing that costs you is upgrading the weapon. And the only drawback for Cinnabar Spindle is that other than Albedo, there are no other sword-wielding characters at the moment that skills off defense. So this weapon is really niche. It's niche just for Albedo. Until they release a new defense skilling sword using character whose majority of damage comes from its elemental skill. Then Cinnabar Spindle will be a very good weapon for that other new character wherever it may come. Okay? Now I know this is missing a bit of a picture here where we don't have a comparison versus Primordial Jade Cutter build. But not to worry, eventually this week I will release the video where we do a weapon comparison. We'll do Harbinger of Dawn versus Cinnabar Spindle versus Freedom Zone versus Primal Jade Cutter. Okay? Probably these 4 weapons. Only other weapon I can possibly think of is Festering Desire, but Festering Desire, though nice for Albedo, to begin with, is actually worse off than Harbinger of Dawn. So in my opinion, there's no need to really compare that weapon. It's like Harbinger of Dawn, Cinnabar Spindle, Primal Jade Cutter. 2 of them uses defense, the other one uses hybrid with burst. But technically speaking, for Cinnabar Spindle, if you have C2, it's not so bad to use your burst because of the added defense scaling from C2. Okay? So anyway, this is all I have for Cinnabar Spindle for now. I hope it has been helpful to you guys, seeing how much damage Cinnabar Spindle can bring to the table versus Harbinger of Dawn, and also with the combination of the new character like Goro as well as the new artifact set. And more importantly, the fact that for Cinnabar Spindle is actually different from Harbinger of Dawn, where 4-piece Husk has a much bigger advantage than 2-piece Petra, 2-piece Husk. Even after factoring Snapshot, even after factoring that I can only get 3 stats on the first rotation instead of 4. Alright, so thanks everyone for watching. If you like the content, remember the video and click subscribe for more. Bye!